And the concept of a BCI is to allow the brain to connect to a computer, and by extension to allow the brain to connect to the entire digital ecosystem. Someone in that condition could also have direct control over motor prosthetics, direct control over the wheelchair, direct control over an automated home, the ability to fluently use a mouse or keyboard with a computer, even we think the ability to speak directly through a thought-to-speech interface.
新兴的脑机接口技术啊，总被形容为黑科技，而这些在科幻片中看似凭空想象出来的技术，已经被研究者开发出来了。其中一个全球的先驱就是坐落于硅谷的 Paradromics。创始人马特希望通过这些技术，使由于人脑与外部世界联系受阻而引起的失明、失聪、失语、瘫痪、渐冻症等患者，重新获得失去的能力。So brain-machine interface is considered a very new technology still. So can you explain the basic mechanism of BMI to us?
The basic concept for a brain-machine interface is to build a modem for the brain. And the concept of a BCI is to allow the brain to connect to a computer, and by extension to allow the brain to connect to the entire digital ecosystem. So versions of BCI that I think will exist in the next 10 years would be surgical implants. So the skull would be opened up by a brain surgeon, the brain would be exposed, and then a small chip would be placed on the brain that would allow for the recording and the stimulation of electrical activity within the brain. And then once you have that data access to the brain, then you can connect to any other type of device. So being a little bit simplistic here, if you can connect to the brain, if you connect a camera to the brain, that could allow you to have a visual prosthesis so that people who are blind could have visual data delivered directly to their brain.
So the main purpose is to heal people with severe disease or severe sickness.
That's exactly right.
So people suffering from what kind of sickness can benefit from this?
So we think of, as the first application of these devices, a group of disorders that we call connectivity disorders. So we would think of blindness, deafness, paralysis, loss of speech. All of these things involve some fundamental breakdown of communication between your brain and the outside world. So if someone is blind, rather than growing them a new eye, for instance, which is not possible today with medical science, you could connect a camera to their brain. And companies are doing this now. For instance, paralysis. Your brain loses the ability to control your body. It's going to be a long time before we can repair a broken spinal cord and deliver full function back to a victim of spinal cord injury. But what we could do in the meantime is to put a chip in their brain and allow them to control robotic prosthetics. The possibility of just providing this data link between brains and computers would open up a whole range of new applications for people with disabilities.
脑机接口因为拥有帮助病人重获能力的潜力而受到追捧。事实上，针对脑机接口的临床试验已经开始，并在近年取得了重大突破。根据《经济学人》的报道，布朗大学研发的一项脑机接口系统，在今年通过刺激瘫痪者的手臂肌肉，让一名在自行车事故中瘫痪的伤者8年来第一次自主进食。而在2014年，在巴西举行的世界杯足球赛开幕式上，一名截瘫男子通过思维控制机器人外骨骼踢了一次球。
I think that there are some really great examples coming out of academia already. There are people today who have implants with 100 electrodes that are able to gain control over a robotic arm or able to use a mouse to click out messages on a screen just by thinking, and then there's a chip in their brain that translates that into some action. what if you could use 100,000 electrodes? So what if you could increase the bandwidth of this brain modem by 1,000-fold?
Then you get more data out of the brain and into the brain. So how does the timeline look like for that to realize?
We're hoping to begin clinical trials as early as 2021, but I think it's realistic to imagine in the mid to late 2020s there could be people benefiting from Paradromics devices.
In 10 to 20 years, this will be affordable so that people can, like on a mass scale, that people can benefit from it?
I think it'll be as affordable as any other medical devices out on the market today. It won't be more difficult than other medical devices, a pacemaker, for instance.
What does the future look like to you?
Maybe the most exciting place that this could go is, in my opinion, pharmaceuticals have begun to hit a wall in terms of their ability to treat mental health conditions. I could see 20 years from now, as the research in basic neuroscience improves and as the devices that we're building get better and better, I can imagine brain implants being used to go in and treat things like obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, schizophrenia, a device that can talk to the brain in its own language of electrical impulses and could be much more specific than a drug that circulates through the entire body. And I see a future where in 10, 20 years, people who have lost biological functionality, people who lose arms, people who have spinal cord injuries, are deaf or blind due to illness or injury, can bypass the limitations of their body and can get at the world around them through these digital substitutes. I think that's the future that I think of and I get very excited about.
So for example, like someone like Steve Hawkins, suffering from ALS, so he cannot move or cannot talk, so his famous chair that's enabled by the technology can help him to communicate with the world.
But where you could imagine going with this in a world of high bandwidth brain-machine interfaces is someone in that condition could also have direct control over motor prosthetics, direct control over the wheelchair, direct control over an automated home, the ability to fluently use a mouse or keyboard with a computer, even we think the ability to speak directly through a thought-to-speech interface.
通过对神经的刺激和读取脑部神经的活动，脑机接口技术可以帮助一些残疾或重度病患者过上正常人的生活。但另一方面，还有人希望用这个技术增强人类。促使马斯克进入该领域的一个主要原因，就是他担心人工智能对人类带来的挑战，认为我们被屏幕、键盘、手势和声音指令等人机交互方式所限制，大大的限制了人类输入输出的效率。增强人类对于人类的未来很重要。
And other than the purpose of healing people, of course, the other thing that we hear about is augmenting people using the brain-machine interface, like what Elon Musk is trying to do. What kind of things can be augmented?
In practice, I would say that there's a very practical reason for targeting things like motor and sensory applications early on, which is that we know how those areas of the brain work much better than we know how higher-level cognition works. So if I can say with reasonable confidence that if we put a brain implant in someone's motor cortex, they'll be able to control a robotic arm. But I haven't seen demonstrated that we would know where to put a chip in someone's brain to make them better at algebra. And even if we knew where to put it, I'm certain that we wouldn't know what the code that we should be running at the back end would look like. I think that kind of advancement is preconditioned not only on building the hardware, but also a really fundamental new understanding of how those processes work. Yeah. So I think it's important. People get really excited, but it's also important to temper expectations and to think about where we should be going in the near term, both for reasons of technical feasibility and also maybe for ethical reasons as well.
人脑与机器直接连通这一新兴科技，既具有巨大的潜力，令人兴奋，也面临巨大挑战，令人担忧。Paradromics 做的就是希望创建高速的神经宽带接口，用于治愈严重病患。但一旦人脑与机器连通，又是否会带来失控的局面？下一节我们一起进一步了解这项黑科技。在科幻电影中，主角常常可以通过一些可穿戴设备实现大脑与机器的交互，而在现实世界中，马斯克投资的 Neuralink 公司声称正在研发全脑接口，使信息可在大脑与外界之间自由流动，像我们目前思考问题一样轻松。而脸书则说，在开发意念输入打字，去提升打字的效率。但在安吉尔的眼中，非侵入式的脑机接口技术目前还无法获取足够的数据，用于有意义的实践。
I remember reading Ray Kurzweil, the futurist, inventor, computer scientist. So he predicts that by 2045, we're going to be able to achieve digital immortality because he said that we can pretty much upload everything from our brain to the machines. What do you think of that?
There's not a non-invasive way to completely image your brain, get your personality out, and then back it up on a computer. The best way, the most physically and scientifically feasible way to do that today is by chemically fixing your brain, which would kill you, and then trying to reconstruct it by slicing your brain under an electron microscope and taking images of it.
So because it's so invasive, so it means that it would not, normal people, regular people would not be, using this technology, right?
And when you open up the brain, it's particularly risky. So it's important to balance, these real risks against the real benefits. And I think right now it's very obvious to me that there are people with disabilities and people with conditions where the benefits far outweigh the risks. And I'm not sure that being able to watch YouTube directly through a brain implant would offset the risks for me personally, but.
Is non-invasive possible? Is it that's a future direction for research, or? Based
on the known physics of today, getting high definition, high resolution information out of the brain non-invasively would not be possible. There are a lot of hard physical problems that you would have to overcome to do that. It would be, I would say, scientific progress worthy of at least one Nobel Prize to do something like that. And I think if you want to use it to augment your video game experience, that's absolutely the way to go. If you really want high resolution information out of the brain, you have to go directly to the brain.
目前呢，人类对大脑知之甚少。人脑有850亿个神经元，而当前的技术呢，只能让我们连接100个左右。通过对大脑的研究，我们可以连接生物世界和数字世界，可以让人们像更换和修理电子设备的零部件一样去修复受损的功能。但这里面的界限又在哪里？究竟脑机接口是大有可为，还是大有可畏？ But healing people is always a start, right? And then where do you draw the lines going from there once you have opened this Pandora box?
I think it's a very good question. I guess the truth is I don't know. I don't know where I would feel comfortable if I were a functional neurosurgeon and someone walked in and asked me to implant the device because they got tired of using the remote to control the TV. I don't know if that would be a good reason, or so that they could FaceTime without using their iPad. But I think there are also going to be a lot of applications that perhaps you and I wouldn't have thought of today.
What kind of potential applications to other industries?
Maybe augmented reality, places where augmented reality are being used today. For instance, like in the surgical theater. Surgeons can use augmented reality to better visualize the surgery that they're performing. I could imagine that there may be a space for brain implants to help people do what they do better in a way that would be beneficial to society.
And the brain can be stimulated. So will it mean that our kids will learn knowledge in a different way?
In terms of memory, memory is very distributed throughout the brain, and there are certain areas that are known to facilitate memory, and there is a lot that is known, but I wouldn't be able to tell you if you wanted to upload 12 years of piano lessons, where to put the device and what software to run.
But it's just scary to think about it, that your brain can be externally controlled or manipulated.
I think a lot of people imagine when I say modem for the brain, they think of a modem. A modem connects to a computer and then it can sort of access everything on the computer. But in the brain, function is really localized. So if you had a brain implant in your visual cortex, it would have the ability to project things onto your visual scene, but it wouldn't have the ability to reach into your memories.
And does this mean that our society will be more divided in the future, with people just born differently because they can do different things to the brain?
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting argument against allowing people to have these cognitive enhancements. It would be similar to the arguments against doping in athletics. But I think all of these things are worth talking about before we get to the point where someone's ready to press go.
脑机接口技术尚未成熟，研发投入大，且面临审批和监管的风险，距离商业化还有一段距离。然而，作为一个初创企业，安吉尔的团队希望通过快速发展技术，把产品推向医用市场，去帮助有需要的人。
But as a commercial company, do you have some products now that can help you to sustain your business?
Yeah, so we're building two different products, if you will. One of them is a system for research, which is sitting behind me. And so this system, here we can see a bundle of 10,000 microwires. Each of these wires is a fifth the size of a human hair. And we're building this system for neuroscience researchers so that we can take this, insert these 10,000 bundles into an animal, and then read out the neural activity, and then ask really basic scientific questions about those brain areas. So we'll be working with research labs around the world to use this for basic research in animals.
I see. So this is a product for labs.
What we're doing in the meantime for the med device market is, as you can imagine, this is not a good brain implant. And the reason why it's so large is actually because we pull off so much data, and we have to digitize all of that data, and it requires a lot of heat. One of the solutions is not to transmit all of the data out of the brain. So as I was saying, one of our innovations is coming up with a way to knock down the total amount of data that needs to be transmitted and digitized, so that all of this can be put onto a chip the size of your thumbnail. We expect to have that fully functioning system by the end of 2019.
So the only thing that you can sell to make money now is this to labs?
Because it will be some time before we're pulling in a lot of revenue from a medical device. The real purpose of having this technology is to engage the neuroscience community, to get the technology disseminated, and to build better understanding for what it is that we're doing.
But why would you want to start a company to do this instead of a research project?
Well,
because it's quite far from commercialization, right?
It's true that it's a deep tech project. It's very ambitious, but in some ways a company is the best way to get this to people as fast as possible. So it's also a commercially attractive prospect for investors.
那由于多年来一直拥有让人脑洞大开的想法，被看作是科学狂人，直到去年呢，才迎来了利好的消息，是美国国防部资助的6个脑机接口研究项目中唯一一家私人公司。虽然这个领域还是处于非常初期的发展阶段，但随着美国政府、马斯克、扎克伯格等纷纷宣布加入，这个领域获得了更多的资金、曝光和人才，也推动着它继续向前迈进。So everyone has different motivation, starting the company and coming into this space. So I see that DARPA, then it's more like healing for the soldiers. Elon Musk is augmenting human beings. Facebook is for social media purpose. And what about you? What's your motivation coming into this?
I started working on this technology as a way to better understand the brain, to record and stimulate lots of neurons at scale. I guess we're most motivated by deploying this as a medical device to help people.
That's what drives you?
At a really high level, I think everyone's really excited about helping people. But then on a day-to-day level, the thing that, people have a problem right in front of their nose and they just kind of grind at that and work, and it can be very focused. When they sit down and they're working on an extremely difficult problem, the blinders go on and it's just that problem.
And how big is the team now?
We have 10 people now. We'll be 20 people by the end of the year.
Okay. Wow, still on a very small scale, I guess, doing some important work.
Have been working on it for long enough that we have a pretty significant head start. I think the types of things that we're doing, even if you wanted to have a team 10 times our size, you couldn't do it in 10 times the amount of time that it took us. This classic adage, 9 women can't have a baby in 1 month. Some of these things take a fixed amount of time to work through.
So you're not threatened when, Elon Musk comes into the sector, or, Mark Zuckerberg, or like other guys come into the sector?
I mean, it's a brand new sector, so I mean, it's a white space. I think actually Elon and Brian Johnson at Kernel coming in have done really good things for us in the sense that they legitimized neurotech to Silicon Valley. When we were in 2015, when we were first trying to get started, very few people understood what we were doing or understood that could be a business. But with the recent and high-profile entrance into neurotechnology, a lot of people are looking at it more critically and more seriously now.
Paradromics 呢是脑机接口领域最早的起步者之一，虽然也就是2年多的时间，但对于一个全新的领域来说，一切都是瞬息万变的，已经赋予他们很多的先行者的优势。那麦也说目前行业里面真正拥有扎实技术的、具备这个真正影响力科技的公司其实还是很少。虽然大家对于脑机接口科技运用的想象力很广，但麦就认为在未来的20年的时间里面，脑机接口技术呢最重要的应用其实还是疾病治疗。那至于科幻片里面威胁性的场景，离目前科技发展的现状还有很远。我们很多时候其实不必要被新科技可能会带来的假想的潜在威胁去捆住手脚，而去阻止新科技的发展。毕竟科技进步能够为很多人带来真实的受益。
下一集我们来听听一家新的金融科技公司我来贷如何为消费者提供更简单便捷的线上借贷服务，提供技术让传统金融机构智能化起来，又是如何在创立3年后荣升为香港首家独角兽公司。
接着为您播出亚居乐地产筑梦天下。